Hello world. Well, some of you may know me as a counselor. You may also know me as the co-host and co-producer of Flavors of Africa. I am also a PhD candidate at the University of Toronto. I'm a black male student. I study at OAZ, so that's the Ontario Institute for Studies in Education. And more specifically, I'm in CTL, so the Curriculum Teaching and Learning Department. I started my studies in 2017, and after successfully completing my comprehensive exam, as well as my coursework, I became a PhD candidate. So right now I'm at the stage of defending my PhD. I've been at this stage since 2021, but the University of Toronto has informed me that they've placed systemic barriers on my journey to make it difficult for me. And so to make the doctoral journey very difficult, I've done everything in my power to defend my thesis, but they are refusing to remove the barriers that are in my way. Now, these barriers started at the beginning of my doctoral journey. I was not sure, who was orchestrating them and what exactly was going on, but I knew something terrible was going on. I started in the social justice education department, and the supervisor was selected by the university, which I thought was very strange. And the supervisor would sometimes delete my assignments and ultimately refuse to supervise me. So the School of Graduate Studies then sent me to the other department, which is the department I'm in now, CTL, because the systemic barriers were in the previous department, thinking that switching me would eliminate those barriers. What I didn't know was that the racism and harassment was coming from CTL under Dr. Antoinette Gagne. My research was approved by ethics. However, when I went to get the form to conduct my research, under Dr. Antoinette Gagne's care, I was refused the form. I went to my supervisor, Dr. Sandra Stars, about the denial of the academic material. My supervisor said that in the interest of moving my program forward, she would provide me with the material. I told my supervisor, Dr. Sandra Stars, that someone was trying to sabotage my progress, and she referred me to Dr. Antoinette Gagne, the chair of student experience. My supervisor also told me that funding was available to me. I never received the funding. Based on the advice of Dr. Sandra Stars, I wrote to Dr. Antoinette Gagne, explaining my concerns about safety, threats, and harassment. She was the chair of the student experience for curriculum teaching and learning. Upon receipt of my email, Dr. Antoinette Gagne wrote back and said to me that there are indeed systemic barriers at the University of Toronto that can make the doctoral journey more difficult than it should be. She said that Dr. Rob Simon and Dr. Claire Brett would deal with it. The School of Graduate Studies was made aware of her statements, and they said that they take systemic barriers seriously. What happened next was shocking. Dr. Antoinette Gagne employed Dr. Rob Simon and Dr. Sandra Stars to tell me to appear on Zoom. In light of the stress I experienced, I consulted with my doctor, who gave me a note, so that's a doctor's note, and told me not to meet with them on Zoom. Dr. Rob Simon said that my supervisor, Dr. Sandra Stars, was on sabbatical when she was not. He was trying to make up a deadline for me to agree to a plan that would work against me. So he told me that my supervisor was going on sabbatical soon and that I had to agree to the detrimental plan. I was also lied to by my supervisor that the School of Graduate Studies wanted to meet with me. It was not true. It became clear to me that Dr. Simon and Dr. Stars were putting this plan together on behalf of Dr. Antoinette Gagne. When I gave them the doctor's note, they sent the plan to me in writing, which if I had agreed to that plan, it would have removed my thesis work as well as removing my candidacy. So you can see how this is very detrimental to me as a black student and how the racism has continued. Because this was another form of a systemic barrier and another form of racism, I simply continued with my research, and I sent a completed draft of my PhD dissertation to Dr. Sandra Stars. I then received an auto reply stating that she was on sabbatical. Yet hours later, she replied and said that she would review it and get back to me. And she did that in September of 2021. So I ended up completing the third draft of my PhD dissertation, and she let me know that the next stage was the defense, which is the process for any PhD student internationally, that you do not get to the dissertation stage of your PhD journey if you are not a candidate, and I was a candidate. So through racism and through systemic barriers, they've been trying to alter this. Dr. Sandra Stars said she would schedule a meeting to discuss the thesis. My committee then brought up the issues that I had raised about being harassed, experiencing racism and threats, as well as the loss of my funding. And she asked me to speak with Dr. Antoinette Gagne via Zoom. Of course, I could not go to a professor and meet with a professor that admits that the University of Toronto is racist, and I couldn't go to somebody that was saying this who is in power. This is when Dr. Antoinette Gagne intensified things and asked me to meet with her on Zoom, even after telling her about systemic racism. People have been following me from OAZ. They've been sent by OAZ to follow me. I was followed to the TTC and also followed on Via Rail. On December 31st, 2021, OAZ sent an individual to my home to harass me. This was after contact from OAZ. So each time that I would meet with various professors, or anytime when I would meet with Dr. Antoinette Gagne, I would be followed. I received another email at that time from Dr. Antoinette Gagne asking me to meet with her on Zoom. At that time, I was receiving excessive communication from her. I want to note that she is not my supervisor and she is not on my committee. On the morning of January 5th, 2022, when I was a few minutes from my home, I was rear-ended by a tractor trailer. He said, so that's the driver of the tractor trailer featured here. He said that he would make the accident look like it was my fault. I reported this incident to the University of Toronto, and the School of Graduate Studies appointed a safety officer to investigate the harassment I was experiencing. They made a report and they listed a person of concern. So they listed somebody from OAZ as a person of interest, a person of concern. And they said that they were going to deal with this matter. They gave me a safety report, and School of Graduate Studies also hired an academic advisor to ensure that I defend my thesis. All I was told by the academic advisor, who is Carolyn Rabat, was that Dr. Antoinette Gagne had not been charged. The meeting that was set to discuss my defense and dissertation has been canceled till today. Dr. Antoinette Gagne told my supervisor not to supervise me. This has been supported by the University of Toronto. I reported this to the School of Graduate Studies, specifically Dr. Yana Yunusova, who is the acting vice dean students, and they gave me false hope that things would change. Dr. Yana Yunusova did acknowledge that CTL was poisoned and that she would transfer me to my former department, SJE. All this was to delay my work. I waited and waited for results, but Dr. Yana Yunusova sent me back to Dr. Rob Simon. I've taken my concern to the President's office, and the President's office at the University of Toronto said that they would not get involved in the matter and that it is between the School of Graduate Studies and OAZ to resolve issues appropriately. Dr. Yana Yunusova has not been providing me with support, but she gave me false hopes that she would, and that she would help to remove the barriers that have been placed on my education. The Ombudsman also has refused to provide support and has instead asked me to be respectful, despite the fact that I've been very patient and I've been victimized. My case, or this case, is with the Anti-Racism and Cultural Diversity Office, and I'm using this platform to appeal to you for support. It is my understanding that there are many individuals within the University of Toronto that have been aware of the marginalization and racism that I have been experiencing at the university. They've been aware of Dr. Antoinette Gagne's treatment of me, and so I'm also urging those individuals to come forward. I'm using this platform to denounce the racism that I've experienced. Because if this is affecting me, it's also going to be affecting other racialized students that attend the University of Toronto. And it's unfair. So I thank you very much for your time, for your support, and for listening to my narrative today. God bless you all. Keep me in your prayers, and I thank you so much.